We move on to the main menu, we could say, of today's event. And I would like to welcome our associates representing the banking sector. Without banks, we cannot operate abroad. We cannot respond to international demands. And that is why we have here with us today the 4 central banks and 2 additional non-systemic banks for the time being, but we don't know what the future holds, to talk about the challenges of the banking sector and what is to come and what has been achieved to date. Let me remind you that in 2022, apart from it being a year that reached record high exports, 55 billion compared to 40 last year, but also the year 2022 for the banking sector had to do with credit extension. In the past, we had negative credit extension to deal with. The lending increased about 8.5 billion in 22 compared to 21. Another positive data on the facts that MBLs and MBs of the banks reduced significantly to lower than 9% in 2022 to 29%, I'm sorry, compared to 50% in the past. Also, the taxation, which used to be an obstacle for the development of banks, was ameliorated. And in general, we could say that we have a positive climate in the sector. But this is what our excellent colleagues are going to be speaking about. Most of you have met under a different capacity. So do forgive me if I don't announce your titles correctly. Mr. Andreas Chasapis, General Manager, Head of Commercial Banking at Eurobank. Mr. Tilemachos Georgakis, Senior Manager and Head of Commercial Banking at Alpha Bank. Paris Economou, Head of Wholesale Banking at Optima Bank. Antonios Katsouras, General Manager and Head of Commercial Banking at Piraeus Bank. Haris Bavos, Head of Corporate Transaction Banking at National Bank of Greece. And finally, Athanasios Psilos, Chief Corporate Banking Officer at Attica Bank. So let me start according to age. Can you tell us a few words about the bank, the situation in 2022 and the prospects for the future? Yes, well, I will start being the oldest, indeed. We have been working closely with the Export Association since 2008, for a long period, that is. And I was pleased to hear what the President said, Mr. Diamandidis, that collaboration is essential. However, cooperation can also be difficult to achieve. But nevertheless, the Europe Bank has been working closely with ΣΕΒΕ for many years, and I see some of its past presidents, and with Mr. Panagiotis Chasapis, of course, when we began and embarked on the process of supporting the unknown word at the time, extroversion. So ΣΕΒΕ and Eurobank have been working solidly together throughout this period, and we are delighted to be here today and to support this event. I would also like to say that I very carefully read the recent study undertaken by the Institute of Export Studies, which once again was simple, easy to understand and targeted, which shows that the work that you do is exceptionally good, and I recommend that you all read it. Now, let me tell you a few words about the bank that I represent. The bank, Eurobank, in 2022, was a landmark for the bank. I have been working for almost 30 years in the bank, and I could say that this was the best year of the last 15. If we take a quick look, the bank supported in 2022 its clients in the economy on a broader scale, and we had net profit of almost 1.2 billion compared to 424 million in 2021, an increase in deposits of approximately 4 billion. Private provision increased by 30%, the EBITDA, and the indicator that Panagiotis mentioned of NPs, that is the non-performing exposures, was reduced by 5.2, down to 5.2 from 6.8 in 2021. Finally, the coverage indicator has gone to 75% compared to 69% in 2021. And the capital adequacy indicator has increased to 19% by 29 base units, 290 base units. So this was the case for 2022. But it's in the past now, and things are rapidly changing. About 2.5 weeks ago, when we announced the targets for the next 3 years, which of course are dynamic and are constantly evolving depending on the climate, we have said that we will increase loans by 7% per year over the next 3 years. So we're going to issue new loans to the economy. We're talking about net lending by 9 billion, an increase in profitability of 12% per year, and we will also have a return on capital of 12 to 13% per year. Also, it is our intention to buy back the percentage that is owned by the Financial Stability Fund. It is the lowest compared to all banks, 1.4%, but our bank wants to buy it back and issue a share of its profit in 2023. We still focus on, of course, our portfolios. We do not want in any way to witness the problems of past years and problematic loans, which is why we are exerting pressure on portfolios, both us and the Bank of Greece and the European Central Bank. Up to now, and I think this is a very encouraging fact, we have not yet seen any signs of problems with regard to these portfolios. Finally, we have also announced the 2030 program, whereby the bank gradually wants to become a more simple, digital, and targeted operator, always with a focus on our clients. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andreas. And let us continue with order of age. So, Mr. Katraoura, I think you are the next. And representing the Bank of Piraeus. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. And good morning. I really enjoy coming to Thessaloniki. I've worked here for 2 years and I only have friends to boast of. So what I wanted to say about the Bank of Piraeus is that 2022 was definitely the best year in recent times. It was a time when we returned to profitability. The bank developed its commercial value. And it was also the year that we completed the consolidation of our balance sheet. So with an indicator of 4.6% with capital adequacy increased by 300 units compared to 2021. We increased our loan portfolio in 2022 by 2.7 billion to 37.3 billion, while reducing at the same time the non-performing loans to a level below 7% from 13% in 2021. And of course, our goal isn't for them never to increase again. The liquidity profile of the bank is still very strong, 58.4 deposits and 62% intention for loans, and reduction in operating costs was reduced by 5% according to our budget. As a result of all of this, we have finally profits to speak of within 0.42 per share, and in total 899 million profit for our shareholders. The share now is about 2 euros with 2.5 billion capitalization of the bank. We have capitals, liquidity, willingness, and a strategy in order to continue to support the Greek economy for the years to come. The figures that I heard from Andreas and Antonis, if I remember well, in 2007, 2008, before the crisis. NPEs were about 6%. The youth looked about 7, 8, 9. So we're definitely moving in that direction. We have a downward course. That's what we are observing. Telemachos, will you follow? Together, as your slogan says, yes, of course, together. And first of all, I would like to congratulate you for the organization of this conference. It is a very opportune initiative, and it serves the interests of the economy and of businesses. 2022 was a year during which, as an economy, we first of all had to deal with the impact of the pandemic. And I would say that this impact was felt not only on the economy, but in society as well. At the same time, for the first time, we saw the inflation rate increasing significantly due to the energy cost hike and the increase in the prices of raw materials, which are two issues that businesses had to deal with. At the same time, we also saw, after many years, the interest rates, the base interest rates, to moving up from zero and going up. Unfortunately, this increase in 2023 will have to be dealt with much more powerfully. 2022 was also a year when Greece saw an important increase in the GDP by 5.9, when the relevant GDP in the Eurozone was 3.5 on average. Increase in employment, in exports also. We talked about the figures earlier, about 35% compared to 2021. We also witnessed excellent tourism 9-month season, and we saw a lot of foreign investments taking place in Greece, more than ever before. The fact that 7.2 billion were invested in Greece by foreign investors in 2022, when the average in the previous 10 years was about 2.8 billion, goes to show how important all these developments are for the Greek economy. Now, between this business environment, our bank in 2022 decided to continue with a very important transformation it has undertaken. So we are transforming with a client-centered system by investing in people and technology. And I need to focus on these two words, people and technology, because these are two messages that also need to be addressed to the business sector. At the same time, the bank is changing its structures, its procedures, its profile, but at the same time, it is maintaining all its key characteristics, such as its key philosophy and principles and values, which have consolidated the position of the bank in the mind of business people for many years as their first choice for the banking sector. In 2022, we have achieved a major organic increase, an increase of 10% in performing loans, 2.5 billion business loan portfolio, and 3.3 billion was the increase in deposits. NPEs were reduced to 7.8%. Some years ago, we were speaking about 44%. So we see now that we are converging towards the EU average. And also, at the same time, we were able to maintain strong capital adequacy and to show very significant organic profitability. I would say that 2022 was a particularly successful year for our bank. And this means that we are prepared for the challenges of 2023 from a very advantageous position. Charis, what do our friends from your bank have to tell us from the National Bank of Greece? Well, good morning. I'm pleased to be here today, and congratulations to ΣΕΒΕ for promoting Greek extroversion for years. For the National Bank of Greece, the strengthening of extroversion is a strategic priority, and we have always supported the evolution of the export sector given the fact that it is tightly linked to the development of the business and entrepreneurial model of Greece and the achievement of a strong growth for the sector. So what has the National Bank of Greece done in 2022? We had a very good figures and excellent results in all fields by taking advantage of the improved model that has been the result of the 4 years of the bank's transformation. We supported our clients with an expansion of 2.5 billion euros, thus improving on the goals for the year, which were 1.5 billion, through corporate banking in particular, thus strongly assisting in the development of healthy entrepreneurship in disbursements. We had 6.7 billion, 39% increase compared to the year before. Also, taking full advantage of the possibilities given through the Resilience and Recovery Fund, we signed by the end of the year loans of 300 million, which reflects a market share of 9% at the end of 2022, one-third of which had to do with the loans related to green development. Also very important is the quality of our loan portfolio, which remains strong and was further improved in 2022, with the non-performing loan index reduced to 5.1%, much lower than the goal that we had set for the year, and with a high coverage by accumulated forecast of 88% for Greece. Now, with regard to capital adequacy, we further improved our already strong position. The Common Equity Tier 1 in full adherence to RS9, reaching 15%, which was higher than the average of the systemic banks of the Eurozone. With regard to liquidity, which is also important, deposits increased to 55 billion, and the loan-to-deposit ratio was 58.6%. The National Bank of Greece, due to its strong liquidity, exceeds to a great extent the least required limits which have to do with the coverage of liquidity and financing. With regard to profitability, we reached 700 million on a group level organically through our increase in interest, 21% through increase in commissions and increase of operating income. 1.2 billion was the net profit after tax. Finally, something very important for the National Bank of Greece and its current transformation that I would like to mention. It is the progress that has continued in 2022 with regard to the technological evolution and modernization of the bank by improving our digital services and products and our performance overall. In a recent study undertaken by an international agency, the National Bank of Greece now ranks in 10% of the top digital innovators out of a sample of more than 300 international banks, both traditional and digital. To conclude, the high-level liquidity and capital adequacy, the low level of non-performing loans and technology have now reached a level that means that the National Bank of Greece has a comparative advantage in this changing economic environment. Thank you very much, Haris.
Well, I think your chairman said the other day that you are the fifth pillar, and I think that you are about to be listed. Well, I don't think that the fifth or the sixth pillar is anywhere relevant. I think that I'm the youngest of you all, but of course, you are a select company, and I do wish to thank you for your invitation Panayotis. I do wish to thank SEVE for their cooperation. We started working together in the COVID era, if you remember, and we were less than a year old when COVID struck. So I'm very happy to be a member of this panel. 2022 was a good year for Optima, and as a very famous Thessaloniki kid has said, it was our best year before next year came along. Our deposits were increased by 800 million, and our disbursements were higher than 1.4 billion. Our market print is going to be larger because we have acquired two more outlets in Iraklio and in Larissa. Regarding our NPL share, this is very, very low, far below 1%. So this is not a cause of concern for me. For 2023, things have been pretty volatile, as Telemachos has just explained. We are moderately optimistic for ourselves and for the Greek economy overall. We think that our deposits will grow near the 3 billion mark, and we think that our net D will go beyond 5 billion. We want to get bigger in factoring, and indeed ECG is very important for exports, and I want to thank them for being here with us this morning. What is most important for us in 2023 is that we will join the Athens Stock Exchange main market. Maybe our listing will be slightly delayed due to the national elections being called, but it will take place in 2023, and after all the panels or the panelists here are listed already. Okay, we will discuss the micro and the macro levels in our second and third round of discussions here. You know, a wise banker once said that in Greece there is only room for 2.5 banks, but as far as I'm concerned, our competition landscape is very healthy. There is room for a fifth pillar. There is room for a sixth pillar. Mr. Milonas, I don't know if you remember that HSBC and Piraeus Bank were on the same street, and I think most of us here come from certain banks of the past, and this is by no means a bad thing. Indeed, let me thank SEVE for inviting me and for hosting this event. Indeed, Panayotis, I used to visit my friends at Citibank on Tsimiski Street. Unfortunately, they are no longer there. Attica Bank, my bank, is 100 years old. It was first founded in 1925. It has been growing and modernizing itself steadily when it comes to its products and systems. Our HR is very, very significant. Our head is Mrs. Vretou. The banking system does need a lot of banks. We now have a roadmap, we have new shareholders, we have a new investor, a very dynamic one, Thrivest that is, and they will invest in the efforts that our bank is making. We will increase our capital by 473 euros. Asset-wise, we are Greece's fifth bank. We have assets worth of 3.5 billion and a 3 billion euros worth of deposits. So it doesn't really matter which pillar you are. What is important is how you define yourself. We want to be the bank of SMEs. There are systemic banks that are no longer burdened by the burdens of the past, but this gap has to be filled. In its entirety, our banking system has achieved four main things. The drastic cut of the NPLs is one of them, and number two is the drastic cut in our operational expenses thanks to the mergers. Number three is that we managed to increase our capital adequacy, and number four is that we are now profitable. If we compare 2021 to 2022, we see that the increase was considerable. Our credit expansion was of the order of 5 to 6%. This was 10% for us, and 90% of that was corporate loans. So we injected that amount of money directly into the Greek economy. We have a two-pronged strategy because we want to be near the client. We want them to be able to offer their products flexibly. And indeed, banks have to uh, modernize, as Telemachos very rightly said. We have to be modern, we have to be digital because our clients need to be modern and digital. We are now going through an interest rate crisis because of the inflation. This crisis does not come from within Greece. It comes from abroad. It does not have to do with the situation back in 2009 or in 2011. It's COVID, it's the war in Ukraine, it is now the Silicon Valley Bank and Credit Suisse. So Greece's banking system has a very good capital adequacy. The Greek economy is overperforming and it has to be supported by the banks. Andreas, you form part of the trade alliance, whereas all the alliances I know of is the Star Alliance group of airlines. Well, let me start by wishing Optima all the best for their listing in the stock exchange. This is important for the stock exchange too, and let's hope that Attiki Bank will be successful in increasing its share capital. We used to have 20 or 25 banks in the past. Anyway, ΣΕΒΕ and Panayotis managed to bring us all together here. You did take me a lot of years back. So as I was saying, back in 2009, our economists understood that something was wrong. We based ourselves too heavily on consumption. Our debt would only go up because this consumption was debt based. Production was decreasing, the economy was shrinking, and we were a kind of crusaders back then, preaching about the need to change our production model and about the need for our businesses to be outward looking. ΣΕΒΕ was a major partner for us back then. So Panagiotis is right. Macedonia and northern Greece have always been significant for production and for exports. And we wanted to build an exports corridor back then. So we based ourselves on three things. Number one, funding. Our bank keeps on funding SMEs as well as big export businesses. There is no other way to run exports correctly other than funding. Number two, networking and connectivity. As Panagiotis said, back then we built our digital platform, our exportgate.gr, and this was by no means easy for 2008, 2009, because we wanted our export gate members to be able to enter their information and their stories in the platform. Today, this platform is the number one tool for Greek exporters, and we have further developed it through the Trade Club Alliance, which is an international club. We built it together with the Banco de Santander, and we now have more than 2,000 of Greek businesses there. The aim being for their transactions to take place in an environment of increased assurance. Number three, we provide training through our Digital Academy for Business. We provide training for our clients from all over the country in the export sector for them to become more competitive. Our Go International campaign was also very successful. We would travel to our destination countries together with several Greek associations and together with our clients. We would hold conferences in those countries. Thank you, Andreas. Andonis, in 2012 and in 2013, you had to make amends for Agrotiki Bank sold since. I think your contract-based agriculture program was indeed an excellent program. Would you like to elaborate? And would you also like to tell us a bit more about your products? We all market in this shallow product, i.e. money. We can diversify by means of more efficient and effective products. Contract-based agriculture is a legacy. Our relation with our farmers is a legacy. Our partnership with them is a formal one. We work with them under the primary sector and under the secondary sector, the processing sector. Farmers need money to buy raw material and to cover their production costs. Processors need money to buy the product. So when farmers are paid on time at a predetermined moment, this means that production costs can be brought down. This means that both parties gain comparative advantage. This relation is well organized, it is performing well, and after 2.5 years of recess due to COVID, we are able to go back to our clients on site. Another point of diversification for us is ESG. We think that those three criteria do impact on corporate value, i.e., their attitude towards the environment, towards society, and their corporate attitude. So we are trying to quote unquote train them with regard to ESG. Our funding criteria include the environment and the people. So money and its price is what's important, and we do have to comply with the ESG criteria. We are mindful of society. This is why we have launched Equal, because sexes have to be equal, and because we think that banks are not just there to provide liquidity. Thank you. So you need to place more importance on the G part of ESG. Right. Telemachos, with regard to growth and being outward looking in exports, what would you say? Let's start by focusing on where we stand. In the last 20 years, Greek businesses managed to multiply their exports by 5. Those exports have more than doubled from 2015 onwards. Maybe the crisis and the difficulties that we went through were beneficial in that regard because we had to look elsewhere. We had to try different things. Our future prospects are positive because Greece and the Greek businesses have a now have a strong brand abroad. They have also completed major pro-export investments. The economy is now more business friendly than any time before, and this includes the public sector, the banks, the tools such as RRF. Having said that, in order for our businesses to be able to really exploit those opportunities, they need to grow for them to be able to penetrate the foreign markets and to be able to take on those big international players. So, how can a business grow? Number one, organically. This presupposes investing in equipment and investing in HR. Investing in equipment has to increase, has to be able to increase productivity, be positive for the image of the product, promote its Greekness, and improve the business's ESG footprint. This is going to be important for the future, but several times growing organically is not enough, so you need to grow through mergers or acquisitions of companies, of sectors, or products. This is how one can obtain this extra boost that is necessary for an international presence. The role of the banks is twofold. We used to be the party providing the funding, and of course, we will go on providing funding, but now we will also need to provide advice. We have to be business a business partner, a partner and an associate for our businesses. And Alpha Bank has the know-how to do it, has the experience to do it, the strength, as well as the willingness to do it. So we want to stand by our businesses in every step they make inside and outside Greece. Telemachus, indeed, this is very important because, as you know, our businesses, well, 15 or 20% of our businesses provide 85% of our exports. We participate in the food export events. And I remember that in Food Expo 1, people from outside Greece would tell us that what we need for 1 week is produced by our partners abroad during 1 year. The president of ΣΕΒΕ told you about our agro-technology cluster, and we want to start a new cluster for construction materials. I think, Harris, you started to discuss the global markets and the digital component. Indeed, Harris, this is a complex landscape, and we have to take all the components into account in order for our businesses to be outward looking. The National Bank of Greece, I see some dear clients here in the audience before me. Our clients do participate in international commerce, so we are providing an extensive network to them because we work together with credit insurance companies. Regarding products and services, I'd like to launch a call here this morning. So I'd like to call upon our clients to focus on competitiveness among other things, because we need to be outward looking. We need to increase our exports, and this is a topical need because the international landscape is so volatile. Everything is in a state of flux. It used to be the pandemic impacting heavily on our supply chains. Something similar might as well come up tomorrow. We have a whole scope of products in the National Bank of Greece that are supported by specialized advisors, so we can provide hedging to our clients, including risks due to interest rate increases, the fluctuation of exchange rates, the fluctuations in fields like petrochemicals and agricultural products. There are more innovative products such as energy cost management, and we provide hedging for electricity and natural gas bills. Another proposal to my dear partners would be for them to start trusting technology and turning it to good account for us to be able to save time, save resources, and for you to directly access information and be able to make quick decisions, because deciding fast and being flexible is important, just as day-to-day synergies are important. In the National Bank of Greece, we are here to support your needs by means of our specialized platforms. We provide internet banking for businesses. We have the iBank Trade Finance, where you can complete all your international commerce work. Most of our clients does use this platform, and it was surprising that in the first 2 months of 2023, about 70% of new letters of guarantee was issued electronically, and this saves you time and money. Our e-factoring platform offers you a fully digitized management. You can receive information online, you can exchange your files online, And this platform too is very popular. 95% of our factoring clients uses it. Our EFX platform enables our clients to choose their desired exchange rate and their desired time of transaction and do this quickly and securely. Very briefly, let me also call upon you to look into alternative ways for your short-term needs in working capital. And this can be beneficial for you in a multiplicity of ways. Many times, our clients tend to opt for the easy solution. But export factoring is also a possibility. I think Paris will tell you more about this. Export factoring is growing and it is now very much popular. 20% of our factoring turnover was export factoring, and it went up by 27% compared to 2021. Regarding prior funding for exports, combining factoring and working capital, well, this is something that we provide. Let me finish by saying that Telemachos was indeed very right when he brought up the counseling issue, because it's not just the products. We have to have human contact. This is why we have overhauled ourselves, and we do want you to use the counseling potential that we can offer you through our relationship managers and through our specialized staff, our specialized advisors. Given the fact that the international landscape is so volatile and so complex, indeed, we used to come up with indices from our computers, but we would lose sight of the qualitative aspect. I remember talking to some of you saying to me that the daughter of X and the son of Y did leave abroad, but they are now coming back. So this leveling off thing is no longer with us. Grigoris Stamatopoulos, the CEO of ECG, is with us. We would endlessly discuss about how our GDP has to be transformed. Our poli our politicians were not clear as to the difference between securing and guaranteeing. So, Paris, over to you.
So I'm going to steal some of the brilliance of Mr. Stamatopoulos, who's going to follow. But in general, this is a collaboration that we have truly invested in. And it is one of the first that we actually undertook. We started these discussions when we were working when we were in the banking sector for about 5, 6 months, and within a year we had signed this agreement, and we truly believe in it. Based on some of the aforementioned comments, we all realized during the crisis that the company's reduction model had to change. And I think that to a great extent, it was the crisis that helped us achieve this. First of all, for Greek companies to achieve this, and secondly, for us to help them as much as possible by exerting pressure and leading towards this change in model. So within the framework of this change of the production model, what we definitely needed and still need today were the financing tools that would help companies interested in exporting and have a very strong focus on this. In the first year of operation, we collaborated with ECG and previous AEP, as it was known, through the extroversion program. The word extroversion, after all, is something that we have all used repeatedly today, and I believe that this was a very wise choice of program at the time. This program enables export companies to finance through bank loans, to receive finance through bank loans by ensuring their claims from foreign importers to a very high level. And more specifically, after companies making an application to ECG, they ensure their claims, and this insurance they then concede to the banks. Because, of course, we are not the only ones working with ECG. We try to guide many of our clients in that direction, and we hope that we'll be able to do this with more clients in future. As Haris mentioned earlier, it's also necessary to change the culture of Greek business and turn it into a more corporate culture as well. So, despite the fact that most of our collaborations with the ECG, it should be mentioned, come from businesses located in northern Greece, this is something that we definitely want to expand. And I think that Grigoris later on will be talking about the new products which are going to be added to their portfolio. And I think through this, we're going to achieve all these goals. Credit insurance is related to export factoring, of course, as was mentioned previously by Andres and Haris. And I would like to speak about our bank in particular in this respect, because we have redesigned Optima Factors, which means that we have witnessed a very impressive increase in 2022. We have a large number of new collaborations, tripling our turnover and the financing addressed to the Greek economic sector. This is something that we aim to continue to do. After the tripling of last year, we aim at a doubling of the relevant figures for this year. Optima Factors is a member of FCI, of the International Credit Organization, which means that provides us access to a network of more than 100 countries and associated exporters. And through this, we are able to provide liquidity for the relevant claims, also cover up to 100% of the credit risk, and provide information regarding the risk of insolvency related to new partnerships. And this is something that I think we all promote and are interested in, And it is something that really befits our country because the country is at a stage where exports are increasing, as Mr. Diamandidis said at the beginning. Therefore, the factoring turnover and the turnover of the 5 banks and Attica, and I mention it separately because it is still part of the bank. I think uh, we are all interested in these developments and we need to promote them further. Now, since we have spoken about the need for business people and businesses to change, I would like to focus on something that Telemachos said previously about the enlargement and the development of businesses. We had a recent collaboration with Alpha Bank with regard to the financing of a business in central Greece. And in relation to what you said, Panagiotis, about the clusters you have created, what I think is needed is to focus on collaboration and enlarging our business through collaborations, because we don't only have A in M&A, but we also have the M, not only acquisitions, but also mergers, and creating larger networks where we still have the shareholders, but shareholders as a part of a larger scheme. And in relation to what Charis Anadonis said previously, I think we need to guide the relevant stakeholders in that direction. Greek businesses always undertake the initial drive, banks always follow, but the good years, such as 2022, were good because they were good years for Greek business as well. So we want to continue this. We want Greek businesses to continue to succeed, because that will mean that we succeed. And that's why I believe we need to drive them and guide them in that direction towards collaboration and, if necessary, towards mergers, which we also support. I agree. As we say in mathematics, this is an essential condition nowadays, and we have all agreed in our personal discussions that the culture is changing. We had a different mentality in our generation and the younger generation. We no longer have people who think, I am the boss, I need to own 100%. I was talking to a guy the other day who said, I'd rather have 20% in a company of 100 employees rather than 100% in a company of 15 employees. Thanasis. In the last couple of years, and this is something that all companies have taken advantage of, we had some financing tools through the Development Bank or European projects. You had full absorption, I know, yes, 100%, and I don't know whether... I think you got a premium, a bonus. I'm not sure we should mention that, but anyway, you did it exceedingly well. Yes, thank you very much. If nothing else, I think it's quite topical to speak about such programs as we did during COVID years. We need them more than ever before. Why? For 2 reasons. Well, the first is liquidity. The second, interest rates. I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm going to speak quite quickly. Yes, we saw that money that had gone abroad came back to the country, etc., etc. Yes. What I would like to say is that right now we have 2 centrally managed programs. The NSRF, 26 billion euros to 2027. 21 billion coming from the EU and 5 billion coming from the Hellenic Republic. So we are slowly starting to absorb these funds. Attica Bank is participating in all these centrally managed programs. Now, let me talk about the NSRF, the ESPA programs. We have 2 cycles. First is the green transition, up to 1.2 million per project. And secondly, digital transition, with a budget of up to 650,000 euros and 60% grant. We also have digital transformation, environment and climate change, and just transition. And also there are going to be some programs of the public sector, quite a large fund, where we will see SMEs and large businesses participating and acquiring their share in profitability and in the development of the Greek economy. The second thing that I would like to mention is the new development law. The new development law of 2022 provides us with a tax incentive and also through grants. About 7 of 8 actions we have in the fields of processing, tourism, supply chain, agri-nutrition, and more. And I'd like to mention that this particular program is addressed to all companies regardless of size, with a grant of up to 75%. Each action can have a budget of up to 10 million, and each business can participate in up to 2 actions with a total sum of 2 million. And groups, large businesses, can absorb up to 30 million, or budgets exceeding that figure. These are the 2 programs currently in process, the ESPA and the SAREF and the development law. But also we need to talk about interest rates. Due to the increase in interest rates because of the inflation pressure, I would like to talk about our new products. We are designing, rather 4 new products have been designed by the Hellenic Development Bank that we will be participating, and I'm sure all the banks will be participating in. These projects by the Hellenic Development Bank, 3 of them are for co-finance. One has a guarantee. The first has to do with liquidity of companies, and I would like to say that we're talking about a budget of about 600 million, a working capital of up to 1.5 million for 5 years. But what makes this program very quote-unquote sexy is the fact that 60% of the capital is provided by banks and the 40% by the Hellenic Development Bank. The 40% of Hellenic Development Bank is interest-free, and the 60% by the banks, up to 3 percentage points, are subsidized for the first 2 years by the Hellenic Development Bank. And in this way, we are creating products related to the working capital. We also have a second co-finance product which has to do with the so-called green guarantee and renewable energy sources with a budget up to 8 million. A third program related to the digital guarantee with a budget of 250 million and can go up to 1 million, 10 years duration. And as I said, 40% interest-free throughout the loan duration, and 60% also interest-free for the first 2 years. Another 4th program is currently being developed through a collaboration of the banks with the Hellenic Development Bank, and it has to do with the new development law. There is a product that is being introduced that will function as a guarantee for the budgets of the development law. And here we're talking about the provision of long-term loan by the, or rather with a guarantee of the Hellenic Development Bank. But even more so, it is going to function as a bridge in order to provide a further facility that has to do with grants. So these 4 products come to fully cover the needs for liquidity and interest rate reduction, and also the requirements of the new development law. To conclude, in order not to take up more time, I would like to add that we also have the programs of the Hellenic Investment Bank, the European Investment Fund, I'm sorry. One has to do with competitiveness for SMEs and investments in green development. The loan can be up to 7.5 million, and its guarantee up to 70 or 80%. So what I am suggesting today to Greek businesses is for them to take advantage of the banks and the centrally managed products and programs so that the Greek business world becomes even more competitive by taking advantage of these instruments and the relevant financing in relation to the new development plans. Thank you very much for reminding us of all this. And I would like to mention that in December, I'm sure you'll remember, we had an event organized with the Development Bank and Mrs. Hadjipetrou, with representatives of all banks from Thessaloniki. I think you liked that. You heard that it was very successful and you were envious and decided to come here today. Okay, let's talk about more long-term plans now. First of all, I think we need to agree on two things. The inflation is not inflation linked to demand, but it is linked to cost. So there's currently a debate ongoing about whether this cost inflation should be dealt with a hike in interest rates or not. I think it's not right to continuously increase interest rates because this leads us to a downward spiral. But this is a different debate for another day. Two, we talked about the performance of the Greek economy, the positive performance of 2022, and about what Telemachos said before about the investments being made, which in the last year have been 3 times higher than the average of the previous decade. And we had a high score of foreign direct investment. So where are we at now amidst this environment? Talking about the Greek economy, well, I think we need to hear from the oldest representatives of the banks who know about the situation, even when we had the drachma as the Greek currency. Would you like to start, Andonis? Yes, no offense, Andreas. So what's important to note is that we're coming out of a very successful year in 2022, which created expectations for 2023, right? Yes, but also an impetus. It gave an impetus for 2023, 6% growth, when the rest of the Europe was around zero. It is also the year that, as we all mentioned, had a 10 billion euro credit expansion, a huge figure, where the banks contributed to growth. Now, talking about 2023, our predictions are that the Greek economy will remain resilient. We expect a growth of about 3%. And it's very important to mention also that we are one unit away from the much-awaited investment credit. 2023, the main driving force for the Greek economy will be the increase in investment expenses. Investments are expected to increase at a very high rate, 23 to 25, with the support of, firstly, as we all said, of the great liquidity of the banks and the use of European funds. Thanasis mentioned all this very clearly and in detail. So let me just remind us of the totals. In the next few years, from 2021 to 2027, we have this long-term budget of the EU, 40 billion. And with all the relevant SAB actions that we're talking about, add to this about another 30 from the RF, the Resilience and Recovery Fund. This money is being leveraged by the banks and by private capital, of course, which means that there's more to come. In a few words, we have the relevant funding. We have TAA. I think that we have disbursed 3 installments. Most banks, we have signed already 2 billion of contracts with companies for projects in all sectors: energy, agri-nutrition, processing, infrastructure, tourism, everything. And the development law is going to support about 13 lines with about 1 billion a year, 70% financing, depending on the geographical area, etc., etc. We're talking about high figures. Processing, agri-nutrition, tourism have already been included, 2.5 billion worth of projects. And in April, Entrepreneurship 360 and the Just Development Transition are opening up, while the ESPA, the NSRF that Thanasis mentioned earlier, well, a couple of days ago on the 23rd, digital transformation and green transition have opened up, and we are expecting I think in the next quarter, the program Research and Innovate. So we at the Piraeus Bank are right now looking into about 600 investment plans and carrying out their assessment within this framework. At the Bank of Greece, we continue to support sustainable business plans. We provide liquidity by supporting and complementing European funding and by exploiting, in particular, guaranteed projects which have the competitive advantage of bonds for with regard to pricing for all businesses. And we need to see what's going to come also through the Hellenic Development Bank, the guarantee project, CIB, RRF, very important instruments, cheap liquidity and quick liquidity for everyone concerned. We at Piraeus Bank had a great expansion of 2 billion last year, and we have a similar goal for this year. And we believe that we are going to achieve this. Thank you very much. And of course, what also helps are the deposits that have now reached 186 billion, if I'm not mistaken, figures that remind us of the situation a decade ago before the problems of 2011, 2012, and 45 in the next 3-4 years. Andreas, your opinion on this and that of Tassos Anastasatos regarding the Greek economy? In 2022, we had a very successful year for the country with a growth rate of approximately 9%. And we want to see that continue in 2023, despite the forces to the contrary that may be prevailing globally. We have all agreed that Greek businesses need to be digitized, need to raise their level of extroversion. They need to expand through mergers, acquisitions, clusters. They need to focus on ESG. This is something that we are all looking for. We have spoken about a large number of products and services, all of us. And of course, it's not the job of the clients to know all this. It's our job to tell them what matches their company. Personally representing Eurobank, I believe that the recovery fund resources are very important for the country because they are those that will provide an impetus for in the forthcoming years through a reform program. We have already signed 39 contracts with clients, and as you potentially know, this program touches on the sectors of digitization, green economy, enlargement, extroversion, which means that it touches upon all that we have already discussed today. So if we were to say something in conclusion, it is our job to come to you to tell you which of these products befits your company, which combination is the most suitable, and for you to visit us so that we can embark on a new journey together. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andreas. We've spoken about Greece, and I think we can agree on the fact that what's happening in the US or in Switzerland are not phenomena that are recent. We all knew about these funds and the various holes in the Swiss banking sector. The US situation is something totally different. We believe that Greek banks are sufficiently fortified in order to deal with such situations with regard to their capital adequacy, but we are also interested in the international market as exporters. So, Telemachos, would you like to say something about this on a long-term international level? And Paris, you too? Okay, let me start by saying that this is one of the most topical questions in recent days, and that is whether the situation in the US and in Switzerland can affect the Greek banking sector. The truth is, for some of us, memories of 2008 and 2011 and 12 came back to memory. Let's say what happened in very few words and say why we have a great different. Our situation is totally different. Silicon Valley Bank, a very relaxed supervisory environment of operation. It committed the following two errors. First, it invested heavily on startups. Secondly, it invested on bonds with a fixed interest rate without having a risk compensation, which is something that Harry said that businesses need to do. The bank did not do so, which means that when it increased its interest rate very fast, much faster than the ECB, these bonds lost their value. Credit Suisse. We know that, as you mentioned, there have been erroneous corporate decisions made of a very high cost. There were scandals involved and also court decisions regarding illegal revenue and many things leaked into the press. The bank did not close. It's gone under the umbrella of the UBS. The banks of the Eurozone and Greek banks in particular have been operating in recent years under a very strict regulatory framework, which has been imposed by SSM. Through this framework, specific rules have been instituted according to which we operate, and we show full discipline to them, of course. We have continuous stress tests, of course, that we are experiencing, that the Greek banking sector has been subjected to. But this has come to show that the Greek banking system has the resilience to be able to survive even extreme financial situations, because that's what we're talking about when we mention the word stress test. Right now, what do the Greek banks have to show? High levels of liquidity, which is something that we have all mentioned, high capital adequacy. We have reduced the non-performing loans. We have very good quality in our loan portfolios. And I would also add another quality indicator. We have management teams which have very quick reflexes. And these reflexes have been heightened as a result of the crisis that we have experienced in Greece during the previous years. And we are also operating in an environment, as mentioned, in which the economy has been progressing well, successfully in 2021, 22, and in the years to come, we believe. So I think that all these facts can make us certain that banks are strong and adequately fortified, even if the economic situations and conditions become even harder. But let me sum up what you said. The US is something different. The Switzerland is also different, and Europe as well. Supervision and regulation is a problem, as we mentioned. With every crisis, there was a re-regulation, then the market went up, the re-regulation relaxed, and then again we had increased supervision, etc. And I remember the routes that we have discussed repeatedly, saying that we hadn't read the new one of July, and then there was a new one issued in August or whatever. What does this mean? That the Greek banking sector and that of Europe have a higher regulation and supervision, which did not relax as happened in the US, where in 1819 it had been strengthened. But in Europe, we believe the system is sufficiently fortified right now. And Paris, what do you have to say on this? Well, I think that first of all, I would like to also congratulate the banks now being listed in the stock exchange. And I'd like to look at you all in the eye and say that the Greek banking system is extremely strong and healthy, led by the four systemic banks. And I'm telling you this from a bank that is constantly in competition with them. Not somebody who is working in these banks. I'm telling you as one of their competitors. They are extremely strong and healthy. Why? Because Greek banks have a strong capital adequacy. Because, as we all mentioned earlier, We are all showing profit, which is something that we haven't experienced for years. Right now, the Greek banking sector is profitable and is healthy because it has shareholders. In the past, all we asked shareholders to do was to inject money into the system. Greece right now has the three best indicator ratio of loan to deposits, about just a bit lower than 60%, which is something that I have never experienced in the past in my career. I don't know if any of my colleagues have seen this happen before in their career. It's true. It's nice to hear you mention those of the past generation. Well, Greek banks and the four systemic banks in particular have achieved great things. And me and Thanasis, who are not representing systemic banks, also come from that sector. So they have achieved great things in recent years, and they have managed to reduce non-performing loans from about 50 to about 6% in total in the market. And the forecast is that we will go down to 3 in the next 2 years. And I'd like to add something more, which nobody has mentioned. But I think it's something that's quite good for us, which has benefited us because of the non-existence of an investment level. The relations to foreign banks, we had limited relations compared to previous years and the situation before 2010. And this non-existence of an investment grade is more or less maybe protecting us from turbulence in the European banking sector. People may ask, are there signs of unrest? Or, in my opinion, no. Are there signs that may cause concern? Yes, as is expected. For example, potentially in future, something that we haven't yet witnessed in the first quarter. I don't know if any of my colleagues have done so. Maybe a potential reduction in the demand for loans due to the increased interest rates, but this has not yet been seen in the first quarter. Now, with regard to the Greek banks, I think we are absolutely safe. And personally, I feel that Greek banks right now are the most secure in Europe. And in relation to what Telemachos said earlier, we have been under such strict regulation and had so many inspections in recent years that we no longer have any skeletons in the closet. Thank you.
I do remember back in 2015, the then president of the Greek Banking Association was asked about the author of our study and how come that we were so quick. Of course, we spent weekends and nights and holidays on end doing that study. We authored it ourselves. Haris, is it going to prove even more expensive? I mean, those interest rates. Let's start with inflation first, because the two are intertwined. Clearly, the consumer price index is de-escalating. This is mostly due to the fall in energy prices, as well as to certain raw materials and commodities imports. The so-called structural inflation, though, and this is what the ECB is focusing on, i.e. inflation minus energy prices and food prices. Structural inflation in February was 6.6. in February and 6% in January. Lots of products and services are impacted, and food inflation is still very high. In Europe, the quarter average for structural inflation was 6%, and this is so because the ECB is right now 3 times higher than the objective it set itself. Coming on to interest rates, given those high structural inflation rates, the ECB brought this up by 50 basis points in March. They did so because they felt that European banks are very strong capital adequacy wise and liquidity wise, so they took the risk of perpetuating their interest rate increase policies. I think that if the current upheaval in the banking sector is going to have an impact on the macro image for the GDP and for inflation, uh, we will see if the upheaval is terminated and the ECB's projections are not heavily impacted, and if things in the Eurozone do move smoothly. And another major thing is the labor market. The labor market in Greece and abroad remains very strong despite the inflation. Working people are hard to find and salaries are increasing. So, if those two elements are not impacted, then the interest rates will keep on increasing. Everything is so volatile, and Christine Lagarde has not issued any guidance until now. The economists of our bank feel that in 2023 we will have more limited increases compared to the situation before the Silicon Valley Bank and the Credit Suisse cases. We will have an increase by 25 or 50 basis points until the end of 2023 and for 2024 as well. What is this going to mean for the export sector? The export sector will be impacted indirectly. Anything that does slow things down, be it a further interest rate increase or any other source of pressure in the international economy impacting on demand from abroad. This is going to impact on us as well. For the next 5 years to come, we think that an average increase of 5% for Greek exports in actual terms is feasible. Our research team is telling us that an additional 3% annually can be added to this 5%, depending on Greece's R&D progress in the meantime. So despite all the fear, our macro elements and our fundamentals have still not changed. they remain strong. Okay, Harris, you said that maybe there will be an increase by 50 basis points until the end of 2023. What do you think, Thanasis? What's your take? I beg to disagree with regard to the final months of this year, but Harris was right in saying that unfortunately it is the structural inflation that determines the interest rates, and our structural inflation is still high. In Greece, we are fortunate in the sense that the Greek economy is overperforming. We have direct investments in tourism, and expectations are high for the investment grade. So the Greek economy is overperforming. It's 6% for 2022, and it will be 2.2 for 2024. So Greece is no longer on negative ground, and this means that we won't have any social cohesion issues. In order to bring inflation down, the first sector that is impacted is the households and the businesses, and the second sector, the second thing is recession and unemployment. But fortunately for Greece, we don't have the latter because there is employment, unemployment is decreasing. And it's high time we understood that inflation is nothing new. It has to do with the very existence of the European Union because the Maastricht criteria are inflation based too. They are not just financial criteria. And the main focus for the ECB is to keep prices low. The only tool that they have at their disposal is interest rates, and all they can do is raise them. As we speak, let me just give you some figures. We are at 3.5% from the ECB, at 5% from Vent, and 4.25% for the Bank of England. The Hellenic Republic bond is at 4.2. For 2022, we had 8.2, 2023, 6.6, and 2014, 4.3. Before COVID, our inflation was less than 3.5%. So it's going to take us a lot more effort. The reason why we are happier and the reason why we feel that the interest rates are not going to increase any further is those reports by the Fed and the ECB with regard to the interest rate curve and the derivatives. They are going to de-escalate in the beginning of 2014, and it's too late for hedging. The Greek businesses have to look into the programs that are available and use the interest rate subsidies that are available. Okay, the usual thing is to have three economists and four viewpoints. I've always been a great fan of Friedman's, but since we only have a cost that is increasing, not demand. So it's not a matter for the monetary policy to solve. Each country have to give their own solutions, and national policies are not within our remit. I want to thank you all very much. Andreas, a final thing from you? Well, all the viewpoints that have been voiced were excellent, and this is an excellent opportunity that we've just had to have this discussion. We are fond of Thessaloniki and of northern Greece, so we need to be optimistic. Of course, not highly optimistic, but our groundwork is solid. This is why we need to be optimistic and envision the future with certainty. Telemachos, I too am pretty happy to be with you this morning. You have six of us, six banks here in this panel. As we have understood in the recent years, everything is changing so quickly, and this is how things will be in the next few years too. So, businesses and outward looking businesses in particular have to turn those opportunities to good account and take notice of imminent risks and dangers, because due to frequent changes we have to keep on exporting and not just base ourselves on tourism, because tourism is a sensitive product. Tourism entails exports too, because tourism was there to support construction material businesses and raw material businesses, because having a whole hotel being refurbished meant a great deal for those sectors too. Paris. Well, we are flexible, we are fast and flexible. I too was very glad to come here this morning. It's a great thing that we are on site. I think it was my first flight with no mask on. Well, I do keep mine on. Okay, I guess this means that COVID is somehow leaving us, and we now have other causes of concern to worry about. We too are optimistic for the Greek economy and for the banking sector as well. And somehow we are now being more competitive vis-a-vis each other. We all want more jobs and better jobs. So the Greek businesses should take advantage of this and come and talk to us to find out how we can fit in into your plans. You can do everything on paper if this is how you feel, and you don't have to buy something that we are already offering. We can build something for you from scratch. We can provide tailor made products. I think that all of us have taken our lessons from the past, and the only way is the way forward. How about you, Panayotis? Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us, for inviting us. The banks want to do a great deal. Well, would like a cut. Well, okay. As to the query that the business community might have, Harris explained a great deal with regard to interest rates, but as to whether they should move forward with their investment or postpone it, I think that they have to move on and invest. on the basis of a modernized business plan and by using EU funds too. Over to you, Harris. I too am very happy to be among you this morning. We've gone through so many things in the last 15 years, and I think we have come out stronger and wiser. Our structures have changed, we have adjusted, we do trust Greek businesses and Greek banks. I am optimistic. Nonetheless, right now, the Greek economy as such is doing that well that one has to really try hard to make it revert back. Of course, this doesn't mean that we Greeks are not capable of that, but I think Greece is going through one of its best stages in life. Well, indeed, we should not make a mess of it ourselves. I too would like to take this opportunity and thank you. I do feel that our businesses have to invest. Our banks are very well protected. Thanks to COVID, we have so much of e-commerce and so many new things. Therefore, we need to provide the correct and up-to-date banking information for our businesses to move on sustainably. As we speak, right now, this is not a Greek crisis, this is a global crisis. Well, once again, I want to thank you all for the discussion we have had. We are lagging 10 minutes behind. Still, I think that all that has been very useful information.